Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by the movie Hangout. I just finished watching Stranger Things Season 3, Episode 7, titled The Bite. Let's talk about it right now. This episode, a ton of things happen. So we have a lot of different storylines that have been built up throughout this season, and now they're finally coming to a head. I mean, I just didn't even know where to begin, but I found a really, really good article here on Vulture, and I don't know, this writer happens to really capture what this episode is about and everything that happens into it. So let's dive into it. Stranger Things recap: Flay in the USA, and basically what that's referring to is that Mayor Klein has been setting up a 4th of July fair. So everybody, like, their mind is kind of taken off the fact that all the stores are closing in the town, and this mysterious shopping mall is opened up. Nobody knows yet that he actually has been getting, money from the Russians who built this thing. But this is going on, and a lot of the things happen at the fair. And I love this episode because of that, because I just like fairs. There's a lot of nostalgia. Even though time goes by and the decades go on, there's just something about a fair that just doesn't really change, and it's kind of cool. So the article goes, so that's subtext of Steve and Robin's clumsy conversation in the previous episode. Robin's previous obsession with him stemmed not from her desire for Steve, but from her desire for a girl who only had eyes for Steve. So basically, we find out that Robin, has same-sex attraction in this episode. I was kind of blown away by it. I was like, what? Like, they were throwing that in there, but whatever. They decided to have a character that's different than what is normally in, like, a lot of stuff with kids. And but I don't think that was like a really big deal in this episode or the focus of it. There were a lot of really, really big things. For instance, there's a great scene. It says here, backing it up a bit, it takes some work to get them in the bathroom, and that's where she kind of like told Steve about how she feels about things. So the Starcourt gang escapes from the bunker. So they're underground in the bunker. They finally escape. They're still drugged. So they're like, because they were given that truth serum by the Russians when they were being interrogated. So they're just really whacked out and high, and they're, being really ridiculous. So they escape. They run into one of the theaters to try to escape from the Russians, and the theater is playing Back to the Future. It was really, really cool seeing that, when that first came out. I don't know. It's just like, Back to the Future, I think, is one of those definitive movies from the 1980s, 1985, right in the middle of this amazing decade for music and movies and, just the economy in the USA and our culture and everything. Really, really interesting. It's fun watching Dustin and Erica take on the parental roles as their older friends recover from whatever drug they've been given, the truth serum, even if neither of them are all that great at keeping an eye on the kids, and they're not. Of course, Dustin on the other has the other tasks to get through, including making radio contact with the rest of the gang, which has problems of its own, really big problems, as it turns out. The Mind Flayer knows where they are, and despite their best efforts to board up Hopper's cabin, Night of the Living Dead style, and that is one thing that I've noticed from the creators of this series, they really do take the best parts of horror movies and action movies from the past 30 or 40 years, and they put it in this into the series. And well, I think it's really cool, and it's fun to kind of like figure out, okay, that's from this movie or that's from that. It's like, rather than it being original ideas, it's just kind of like a big crock pot of old ideas. Its tentacles find their way in as it tries to take out Elle. It doesn't succeed, but it does wound her. For the Mind Flayer's plan to work, it needs Elle off the board. She's just too powerful. Retreating to a supermarket, they tend to Elle's wounds with some help from Max's skateboarding experience and stock up on supplies, including a massive firecracker called Satan's Baby. what a name. That if that it's safe to predict will play a role in the season finale. Given a brief respite, Elle and Mike spend a little time talking haltingly about their feelings while Lucas makes a case for a new Coke, which is really cool because Lucas is holding up the old Coke can. So one thing that Coca-Cola did as a partnership with Stranger Things and Netflix is they actually brought back a limited edition 1985 Coke can, which is really cool. And you could only order it online, and that thing sold out within hours. So thousands of cans of Coke sold out. And it was really cool because that kid, Lucas, he gets a Coke, cracks it open, sips it, and he's like, ah. And then he kind of looks to the kids and he gives like a whatever the slogan is or tagline, and it was exactly like a commercial. I mean, it was absolutely hilarious. That kid knocked the ball out of the park. It was so funny. And while that's certainly how it was sold at the time, tradition eventually won out. Meanwhile, back at the fun fair, a lot of people aren't having fun at all. Sandwiched between her parents and their flagging marriage, the littlest Wheeler kid spots something moving in the trees from the top of Ferris wheel. But the real threat comes not from the mind flayer, but from the Russians, doggone Russians, who arrive determined to take out Alexei before he can help the Americans shut down the underground lab. Tragically, they proved successful as Alexei was learning to love America. That dude freaking loved America. That Russian guy, he just was like, man, these different flavored Slurpees, these cartoons, this place is great. Though Murray warns him that the carnival games are rigged and only look like they can be won. It's like a metaphor for America, man. I don't know. I mean, I think if you play right, you can win. Alexei discovers otherwise. He's strutting around with a giant Woody Woodpecker where a Russian agent takes him out. That was kind of a sad moment because I like that character a lot, leading to a big fight between Hopper and the Soviets, some of which takes place in the Hall of Mirrors. That was really cool because there was a scene where Hopper goes into all these like the funhouse mirrors, and there's mirrors everywhere, and so you see multiples of yourself in different angles. And the Russian looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger went in there, and it kind of reminded me of Enter the Dragon a little bit when Bruce Lee is in the Hall of Mirrors, and there's that bad guy with like the weird like fake hand claw thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But it says here, which takes place in a Hall of Mirrors inspired by Orson Welles' The Lady from Shanghai. I don't know, I think it's more of Last Dragon. He gets away with Joyce, but not before Joyce administers yet another beating to Mayor Klein, who deserves every smackdown he gets. This guy gets kicked around all the time. Hopper already has a lot on his mind even before the fight, squabbling with Joyce again on the way to the fair. He's shaken when Murray calls out the dynamic beneath their fight. I don't know what the heck that is. This interminable bickering was amusing at first, but it's getting very, very stale, and we still got a long drive ahead of us. But the two younger factions reunite at Starport Mall. Elle's on her feet again, able to use her powers to take out the Russians, threatening their friends by casually throwing a car around. They exchange introductions, keep up on each other, on all the weirdness spinning around them. But the episode ends. They realize they have a problem. Elle's leg has been infected by the mind flayer. This showdown may be over before it even starts. And that's a creepy thing about it. So the whole thing about this episode is it's called The Bite. She gets bit by the mind flayer. And I was like, they have to play into the fact that she got bit. Otherwise, they wouldn't even show that. There has to be something more to it, and there is. So she's actually infected by this thing. It kind of draws from like other like older alien movies. But all in all, I really, really love this episode. If I was going to give it, a rating out of 5 stars, I would give this a 5 out of 5 because there are just so many different storylines intertwined here. There's a lot of action. I think the writing is absolutely fantastic. The acting is fantastic. There's a lot of just really great moments in this episode. Whether it's Lucas at the supermarket with the Coke can, whether it's Mayor Klein in his speech, this disingenuous politician, um, whether it's a scene between Hopper and the Russian in the funhouse, or the crazy conspiracy guy going at Joyce or Hopper. I mean, there's just so many different things in this that I think is absolutely fantastic. So I would absolutely check out this episode. You really need to watch all of them up until this point, at least in season 3, so you can really fully appreciate how the writers just intersect all these storylines, because it is really fantastic. A lot of shows just, they don't really have as good of a payoff. And we can see where the last episode is going to be leading to, and it's so exciting. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this recap of Stranger Things Season 3, Episode 7, The Bite. If you want to get future recaps, future rants, reviews, original content, click subscribe. Later.